The race to treat Huntington's.
I think this trial that I'm on is first, I would say, a hope of a treatment, not a cure, but certainly a treatment.
They have that hope now that we didn't have before, and that's massive.
And we also reflect on some of the week's big news stories. Good evening. Huntington's is one of the cruelest diseases. It's an inherited progressive brain illness which affects movement, thinking and mood. Around 800 people in Scotland are thought to be living with the condition. There is no cure at the moment, but science is advancing. Selena Jackson's been meeting patients and those searching for better treatments.
Every day I pray with the children in the car and thank God that we're alive, we're healthy, we're able to get up and get out, and I'm able to drive.
Pamela Sloan's independence is hugely important to her. Between looking after her children and balancing her work for the Scripture Union, she has little time to slow down. But caring for herself is becoming more of a priority since finding out she has Huntington's disease. Pamela first discovered the faulty gene within her family after her mum was diagnosed.
So then we were advised that perhaps we would want to get tested, and of course you have to decide, do you want to know? That was a big decision, do you want to know? And then I went through the counselling, got the test, and then the result was that I did have the faulty gene, and I remember that I was 40 at the time, and we already had Samuel and Solomon. So I have to say it was, I felt devastated.
Huntington's disease is an inherited condition. It affects moods, movements and cognitive function and gets worse over time. A person with the condition has a 50% chance of passing it on to their children. There's currently no cure. Since her diagnosis, Pamela and her husband went on to have 2 more children. She says being open about her condition has always been really important.
We brought up the children telling them about Huntington's. You know, as soon as we could communicate to them and they were old enough to understand, we told them about Huntington's because we didn't want it to be scary, you know, and the elephant in the room, you know, we wanted to be upfront.
Throughout that journey, Pamela has been supported by the Scottish Huntington's Association. She's monitored and cared for by specialist nurses, and that help extends to her family too.
They have youth workers that work with the young people from the age of 8. So as soon as the boys were old enough, as soon as they were 8, we got them linked in to the youth workers. So they would take them away and do exciting things, but also sit down and explain what Huntington's is and talk to them about, you know, how you're feeling about it and ask them questions. And of course, it was confidential between them, and that's fine. I never did ask, you know, what did you say? And that was just, it was such a blessing, you know, to have that support.
The charity was set up in the late 1980s by relatives of Catherine Martin.
We don't just look at the person who's symptomatic, we look at the person who's caring, we look at the person who is at risk. The whole plethora that comes with this disease, because it doesn't just affect one person, it does affect the whole family and the wider community that they're part of as well. Hello, Scottish Huntington's Association, you're through to Kat, how can I help you?
One of the key services they provide is counselling ahead of genetic screening.
It's not just about what happens if I test positive. There is the bit about, well, what happens if I test negative as well. It is something that we need people to be absolutely sure that it's right for them, because once they know the result, they can't unknow it.
Pamela's also supported by a specialist clinic run at the Aberdeen Royal Infirmary.
Every year I go for a checkup, which takes a couple of hours, and they do tests. Tests on my movement, tests on my memory, my brain functioning, and I really benefit from that, because I love to see how I'm doing. So at the end of it, I always say, okay, could you give me the results compared to last year, please?
Professor Zosha Między-Brodska leads Huntington's clinical research in the north of Scotland. She says the picture of the condition across the country is slowly changing.
Increasingly now we're testing people and finding that for a very few of those people that the underlying condition is Huntington's. So I've got about a quarter of my clinic now is diagnosed over the age of 60 and weren't aware of the condition in their family or hadn't realised what they were seeing in their family was Huntington's.
That must throw up some really unique challenges.
It does, and Huntington's can start in the 20s as well. So for a family looking at what the future holds for them, that can bring more uncertainty. But certainly there seems to be a trend that maybe because people are living healthier lives for longer, you know, sometimes the condition's coming on later. But then when people do get the condition, they'll maybe have other things wrong with them as well.
Last year, scientists in England announced that they'd managed to treat Huntington's for the first time. A gene therapy called AMT-130 was shown to slow progression of the disease by as much as 75%.
So until that news came out, we didn't have anything that clearly changed the course of Huntington's and slowed it down. And that medicine, which is still not, we don't have a publication yet, but what the announcement showed is that it really did make a difference for the people who had what was a very invasive treatment of having a 22-hour injection into their brain of a gene treatment that was extremely expensive.
One trial Zosha hopes will be more accessible is Proof HD. Twice a day, patients take a pill which is designed to help maintain the function and survival of neurons in the brain, which would usually be affected by the progression of Huntington's. Brian Watts is one of the participants.
Stella, how are you? For the last 2 years, I've been coming back and forth here every 6 weeks from Hopeman to the ARI to get assessments, medical tests, cognitive tests. And the drug I'm on it's 2 tablets a day, and I compare myself to other people that have Huntington's, and between the medical observations and family observations, I do believe that I've plateaued rather than the disease progressing.
Brian was diagnosed with Huntington's 10 years ago. He says he's thankful for the chance to take part in a clinical trial.
My attitude always has been a balance of medication and movement and mentality. You've got to keep the brain going. That's a muscle as well. So, and this drug does help motivate you.
Val, how much of a difference have you noticed while Brian's been on this trial?
It's been great to be on that drug. It's much more positive, aren't you? And
yes.
I mean, you walk the dogs. You know, every day he goes a walk with the dogs.
2 terrier dogs.
And he's had a wee part-time job at Murray Motor Museum, and he loves that.
Yeah.
You know, and you still have your little car that you drive.
A sports car.
For Brian's wife Val, the potential impact of the condition on their children has been the hardest part to accept.
You know, you can come to terms with Brian having Huntington's, you know. He's had a good life as well, and he was very lucky it was a later onset, but you know, it's your children, isn't it? That's my worry.
We have 3 daughters and 1 son. So one of the daughters has tested and she's actually okay. The other 3 are thinking about just when the right time would be suitable to get tested, especially with this new treatment that's becoming available to us.
Do you feel a sort of responsibility to take part in trials like this to help to progress research for the future?
Very much so. I've been in other trials since 1988 when my father died. A lot of upsets, a lot of disappointments. But I think this trial that I'm on is the first, I would say, a hope of a treatment, not a cure, but certainly a treatment.
Zosha is hopeful that research could be reaching a pivotal point.
When I started working on Huntington's, it was a terrifying condition, and people just lived with this enormous burden and fear, and there was so little knowledge about it. Now most people know that it's not, that it's a 50-50 chance. They know that there are treatments that are coming that could make a difference, and they have that hope now that we didn't have before, and that's massive. Without people like Brian making that choice to try a new medicine, we wouldn't get anywhere. So we owe a huge amount, and we have patients who've been in other trials where the effects haven't made a difference, but they have answered part of the question, they've answered part of the journey. And then that has led to the next step, and where we are now.
Kat agrees that while the picture is looking a little brighter, she says keeping the focus on Huntington's will be critical.
So in our 36-year history at Scottish Huntington's Association, this is probably the most difficult period we've ever faced. There is a crisis within health and social care, there is a crisis within the third sector, and we have a cost of living crisis. And right at the moment where there is hope because of research, there is really good clinical services that we can provide. There isn't the funding to back that up. And as somebody who's old enough to remember what it was like to not have a specialist Huntington's disease service and not to have Scottish Huntington's Association being there for families, it was a very dark and lonely time.
The Scottish Government told us their recent budget has allocated record funding to health and social care, but decisions about how to spend that money are made locally. Although Huntington's disease continues to ripple through generations of families, Brian and Pamela are optimistic about what may lie ahead.
What difference do both of you think being on this trial's made in terms of how hopeful you feel about the future for your children?
Oh, well, definitely it's hope, isn't it? You know, there's some positivity. We hope that the drug will get more funding and it'll be available for lots more people. You know, that's what you hope for.
When they made that step forward, it was the first domino to fall. And which means that it's every time they do something, they're learning more. And so the other drug companies can use that knowledge, you know, to use it to advance. So, I mean, I am absolutely sure, really sure, that good things will come.
And if you've been affected by the issues covered in this report, support is available from the Scottish Huntington's Association.